What's up, guys? It's Ben with 2020 election predictions, and today we are going to talk about Joe Biden's vice presidential pick, Kamala Harris, and how that will affect the election. So, right here, I have the electoral map of how I think that the U.S. race for president stands between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I'm gonna kind of talk about how Kamala Harris affects this. And but before I get too far into the video, I just want to please remind y'all to subscribe and leave this video a thumbs up, and please comment what you think of this video after its conclusion. So, Kamala Harris, what does she stand for? She's 55 years old. She's the current U.S. Senator from the state of California. She's one of three Black U.S. Senators right now. Cory Booker, a Democrat, and Tim Scott, a Republican. She ran for president in 2020. She did not win. At one point, she was seen as the front runner, but she never really gained traction. She never really gained a foothold in the Democratic primary base. Like she didn't really have a base in the Democratic primary. Some of her signature issues, she's kind of try to be a candidate that can appeal to both like progressives and moderates. She kind of flip-flopped on healthcare that kind of hurt her, I think, in the primary for sure. And she does kind of try to bridge the gap between the progressives and the moderates. And she was a prosecutor in California. I think that will be something that the Republicans might hit her on because she did lock people up as a prosecutor. I mean, that's what your job is to do. And one thing that's interesting, one thing that I think is going to be more important going forward is kind of people's identity and like identity politics. Kamala Harris is half Jamaican and half Indian, so it's pretty interesting. We don't really see that a lot, and she argues that her identity makes her uniquely suited to fight for people who have been traditionally ignored. So I think that's pretty interesting. Looking at the Electoral College right now, it's very, very close. All we need to see for Trump to win is him to flip a state like Florida and Wisconsin, and that actually gets him to 269. And if he gets 269, even though that's an Electoral College tie, Trump would actually win in that scenario. So right now, as I see it, I mean, while Biden definitely has the lead, Trump is just slightly behind. One thing I wanted to look at too is like, what were the polls like when Kamala Harris was running for president? Because we did get some matchup polls between her and Trump. So if we can see kind of, and this is the most recent data, we have Kamala Harris +6. At other points in the race, it was a lot tighter. So I think if we were to average all of these out, I haven't done it exactly, but I think it's close to like Harris +4. If we look at Biden, though, at the same exact time that these polls were taken, and that's going to be kind of the most, oh my gosh, that's going to try to be the most accurate thing. For example, they used an ABC News poll for the Kamala Harris one. Biden was up by 17, and we see Harris was up by 9, so Biden outperformed her a lot. If we look at the Service USA one, Biden +13, Kamala Harris is only up by 5. So there again, we have Biden outperforming Kamala Harris, and so I mean that's definitely one reason why I think Kamala Harris didn't come out of the primary is because people did not think she could beat Trump if she were at the top of the ticket. So one thing that I want to look at too is I have my second electoral map, which basically shows where I think the race would be if Kamala Harris was at the top of the ticket, because I do think that it changes a lot. In terms of, does Biden choosing Kamala Harris as his vice presidential candidate, does that change the race as it stands now? I actually think it doesn't. Kamala Harris is from California. Typically, presidential candidates choose their vice president based on like maybe there's something that they lack geographically speaking that like will help them. So Kamala Harris is from California, which is as deep blue as you can get. So I don't think that necessarily helps her in California. However, like one place where I could see Kamala Harris helping is like potentially in a state like Georgia or North Carolina that does have a high African American population. And if we look at the polls in the Democratic primaries, we actually do see Kamala Harris doing well with African American women, which would make sense because of the descriptive representation. But let me kind of just go over some pros and cons of Kamala Harris as being the choice, because I mean Biden obviously could have picked Susan Rice, Val Demings, Gretchen Whitmer. There's a lot of other candidates he could have picked, Karen Bass, but he chose Kamala Harris. So four things that I think will help Biden is that she helps bring energy and charisma. This is something that Biden's been attacked for a lot, is that he's too old. He lacks kind of the vigor he had in his when in his like previous 40 years in government. So I think that Kamala Harris will be a more coherent messenger. And I think people will kind of like to see that balanced out. They wouldn't want to see Joe Biden pick another very old person who wouldn't have much future in politics. And I think with Joe Biden being so old, there have been a lot of news stories out that say that potentially Joe Biden could only run for one term. And so Kamala Harris would be the likely successor to him if that were to happen. I mean, that's pretty common for the vice president to run for the president after the president steps down or gets term limited. Number two, I think just her identity as a black, half Asian woman helps. It's crazy to me that we're in 2020 and we've never had a female president or vice president. So Kamala Harris would be making history, not in the same way as Hillary Clinton did in 2016 when she was the first female presidential candidate to like be nominated by her party. Obviously, that wasn't enough to help her win, but I do think having a black woman as Biden's VP was actually a smart choice because I think that will rally the Democratic base. Black voters have been very loyal to the Democratic Party, so I kind of see Biden's vice presidential choice as kind of an olive branch to the black community, especially with all of the social unrest and different things like that. Thirdly, I think that Kamala Harris does help with the ideological diversity. I really don't think this is going to be a huge issue for Biden because Biden really has extended to try to make amends with kind of the Bernie Sanders progressive part of the Democratic Party because this is something that was lacking, I think, in Hillary Clinton's 2016 campaign. So Biden is really trying to make an effort. And I think Kamala Harris, whether you like her or not, is kind of seen as a bridge between kind of the more progressive and more moderate sides of the Democratic Party. She couldn't really gain a huge foothold in the Democratic primary, but I think overall she's pretty well liked among Democrats. And then lastly, I would say she's experienced. I mean, she's a U.S. senator. I think she brings a lot more to the table than someone like Karen Bass or like Val Demings, who have not really held national office before. I think Susan Rice would have had that same experience too. So some drawbacks is that there was a reason why Kamala Harris didn't come out of the primary. When she dropped out, she was pulling at 3 or 4%. So she did get a boost at the very beginning because I think a lot of the establishment kind of rallied around her. But she made a lot of mistakes. She flip-flopped on Medicare for all. And I think with Kamala Harris, she was perceived as not being very principled. She was willing to kind of go whatever way was more politically expedient in the primary. And leading into number two, there was that famous moment where Kamala Harris attacked Biden on his busing, or his stance on busing and like the trying to desegregate the schools. However, that attack was just so unwarranted because Harris and Biden's views on it were actually the exact same. So that was kind of seen as a cheap shot. And like it kind of questions, will Kamala Harris be loyal to Joe Biden when he like gets attacked or when there's some scandal that comes out? whether you like Mike Pence or not, he's been a very loyal vice president to Trump. I think that Mike Pence is probably one of the best vice presidential picks in recent history because Mike Pence was from Indiana, so he kind of knew kind of the Rust Belt area. I do think that helped him. And Mike Pence was very, very important in kind of coalescing the evangelical Christian vote that was not fully supportive of Donald Trump at first in the Republican primary. So I think Mike Pence was very crucial. And I think without Mike Pence, Donald Trump doesn't win. I don't know if I can say the same for Kamala Harris, and I kind of question her loyalty to Joe Biden. We will see. One drawback is that she is kind of wishy-washy, and I think she could be perceived more as a radical. So I think that it could help her in that kind of balancing out the ticket. Biden's a little bit more moderate. She's a little bit more progressive. But for the swing voters would probably prefer maybe someone more moderate like Susan Rice. So that's where I see the race right now. And so I think Kamala Harris was a very safe pick. I do think that she will be attacked by the Republicans, but I really think that Joe Biden provides more fodder to be attacked, and I think that's where the race is going to go. So this is the electoral map. I think if Kamala Harris was at the top of the ticket, obviously I don't think she is as strong of a candidate electorally as Joe Biden. I think that she would do more poor in the Sunbelt states where Joe Biden is actually kind of making gains. I don't think she would be able to appeal to maybe the kind of swing Latino voter, the Latino voters that are growing in Texas and Arizona as much as Joe Biden would. Also, I think that she would not have as much support in the Rust Belt. So I think that Kamala Harris would win back a state like Michigan, but I don't think she would be able to win back Pennsylvania and Wisconsin because Michigan out of the Rust Belt states does appear to be the most liberal. I do think she would become very close in states like Georgia and North Carolina, so she would outperform Hillary Clinton in those states. I think Florida would be very close too, but based on what we saw in the 2018 midterms, I think it would be hard for her to win Florida. So I think she would improve upon Hillary Clinton's performance in 2016, but not enough to win. So I think that's why the Democrats did go with Joe Biden, because Joe Biden right now is beating Trump. So I do think it was a good choice in the primary for kind of everyone to rally around Joe Biden. I mean, if you are a Democrat and you want the Democratic candidate to win. There was definitely a lot of work done by the establishment because when like Mayor Pete, Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, they all dropped out and endorsed Joe Biden. That was a coordinated effort for sure. And the last thing I want to show you before I sign off, please subscribe here if you haven't already. And I just want to show you on my predicted account, I guessed that Kamala Harris was going to be the nominee very early on. I think I bought these contracts about a month ago for 41 cents, and I ended up being right. And so right now I've made $29 with a market invested of $20. So that was over 100% return. So I really like PredictIt, and I would encourage y'all to use it too. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.